Hello, I'm Nicole Pinson, the Urban Horticulture Agent and Master Gardener Coordinator for Hillsborough County UF IFAS Extension, and today we're going to talk about soil pH. Soil pH is one of the questions I answer pretty much every day, a couple times a week. A lot of people have questions about soil pH testing for their garden and landscape. What does it mean when they get their test results back, and how do they take a soil sample? So today we're going to go through and answer those questions, and we'll demonstrate how to take a soil sample and then talk a little bit about what those results mean and how you can use that information to make you a more successful gardener. Soil pH is a measure of the concentration or activity of hydrogen ions in the soil, and it's an important variable. It's a relative indicator of your soil's acidity or alkalinity. On the pH scale, we use 7 as neutral. Anything below 7 is considered acidic, and anything above 7 is considered alkaline. For example, some common things that you may know, orange juice has a pH of about 3.5, milk has a pH of 6.5, and hand soap is around 9 to 10. You can't tell the pH of your soil just by looking at it. You've got to take a sample and submit it to a laboratory for analysis. The great thing about soil pH is it provides information that you can use to make you a more successful gardener. And some of the examples of why soil pH is so important is because it can help you plan a garden. You can choose turf grass or ornamental plants based on your soil pH. I hope that it saves you money and time by selecting the right plants, and you might be able to narrow down possible nutrient deficiencies. Each bar in this chart corresponds to a particular nutrient, and the size of those bars indicates the relative availability of that nutrient. So notice to the left of 7, where it is strongly acidic, the bars for nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, magnesium, and molybdenum are thinner. To the right of 7, where it is slightly to medium alkaline, the bars for iron, manganese, boron, copper, and zinc are narrow. Thicker lines signify greater nutrient availability. The thinner lines signify less nutrient availability. So when you tie all this information together, you may be able to predict possible nutrient deficiencies in your garden at low and at high soil pH values. In addition, potentially toxic nutrient levels can occur at low pH values. So for example, Bahia grass is a type of grass that prefers acidic conditions. And many people want to plant Bahia grass because it's drought tolerant and it's low maintenance. However, if you plant Bahia grass on a high pH soil, it won't perform well. And many times you'll see grass blades that are yellowing. That's because it's deficient in some of those micronutrients, where those nutrient bars are thinner when you get into the alkaline soils or the alkaline environment. So it's a really good idea to get your soil pH tested prior to choosing landscape plants or planting grass, so that you can pick the right plant based on your soil pH and save some time and save some money. So blueberries are delicious, and you can grow different kinds of blueberries in Florida. But blueberries, keep in mind, they're a very acid-loving plant. So by getting your soil pH tested prior to planting blueberries, you may be able to determine if that's the right plant for that particular part in your garden. If you plant them in an acidic soil, they'll perform better. If you put them in an alkaline soil, no matter how much you care for them, they're not going to do the best that they can do, and you won't get the fruit that you're looking for. An alternative is if you have a high pH and you still want to grow blueberries, you can try planting them in a raised bed or half of a barrel like we did, and use a medium such as pine bark fines that produces an acid medium or environment that's suitable to growing blueberries. So to take a soil sample, you'll first want to determine what kind of information you need. And if you'd like some soil pH information about your entire landscape, then you would go ahead and take 10 to 15 small samples from your area and then mix them together in a bucket. Don't take any samples from problem sites, because you might want to take those problem site soil samples separately and submit those so you get information specific to those conditions. Another example is if I'm just trying to get information on turf grass, or maybe where I'm planting a vegetable garden, or if I'm putting in citrus trees. Instead of taking a representative sample of my entire landscape, I would probably want to take a sample of those separately so I can get accurate and specific information to those kinds of crops or grass or plants. So today we're going to take a soil sample of a vegetable garden, and we've got some tomatoes here that are doing really well. So we've tested this area and our soil pH is good. But for you at home, these are the steps that you'll need to perform in order to take a soil sample. You want to determine if you're testing for grass or you're testing for plants or crops. If you're taking a soil sample for turf grass, take a sample that's about 2 to 4 inches deep, which makes sense because that's about as far as your turf grass roots are going to go. You don't need a sample that's a foot deep in order to get a good information about your turf grass roots. If you're taking a soil sample for an area where you're planting trees or shrubs or crops, you may want to do a 6 to 8 inch soil sample. That way it's a little bit more representative of what you're intending to plant there. So we'll take a sample that's about 6 to 8 inches deep, a small slice, and place that in our bucket. That's sample 1. You'll want to do this about 9 more times and then place each sample in your bucket. So after you've gathered your 10 slices of soil from your garden, you want to mix them up in your bucket, and you could do this with your trowel, you could do this with your hands. Make sure everything is mixed up really well. Then you just need to submit about a pint or a cup of soil to our office. And I'm going to go ahead and use the UF soil sample bags. And you fill your soil sample bag up just to the fill line. So you can see you really don't need a lot of soil in order to get an accurate pH analysis. Tie this down, fold this over, and there's your first soil sample. Now if your soil is really wet or you've got an area that doesn't drain well, before you take your representative sample, you'll want to dump it out on some newspaper and let it dry out for a day or so, so then that way you can submit a good dry soil sample to either our office or the university. To get your soil pH tested, you can send a sample to our office, the UF IFAS Extension Hillsborough County office, or you can send a sample to the UF Extension Soil Testing Laboratory. Our office tests for soil pH only, and the cost is $3 per sample. The UF Extension Soil Testing Laboratory also tests for soil pH, and the cost is $3 per sample. However, if your soil falls below the target pH for your crop or turf grass, UF will run a second test, and they provide you recommendations for line requirements. You can also request 2 additional tests through the University of Florida Soil Testing Lab, and those would be soil fertility and micronutrients. So you want to make sure that you fill out your form completely and put your name and contact information. If you give an email address, usually you'll be contacted a little bit more quickly than through the mail. When you're filling out your form, it's very important for the extension agent or the University of Florida laboratory to be able to answer your questions and provide appropriate recommendations. You want to put the type of plant you're intending to grow or the plant that you have a problem with. So that includes if you're growing turf grass and you have St. Augustine, if you know it's Floratam, that information is helpful. If you're trying to grow blueberries or gardenias or hibiscus, go ahead and put that information down. Also, it might be helpful to us if you have any problems or issues that you need assistance with on correcting. You can indicate that and put that in the comments or questions or remarks section, and we'll try to adjust that. So once we get your pH results, we can interpret that for you and provide you with recommendations tailored to your particular landscape. Contact our office if you have any questions once you get your results back. We're here to help you interpret those results and help you choose the best plants for your landscape while following Florida-friendly landscaping principles. I hope that you'll be able to see that soil pH can provide you lots of clues to your garden.